What is going on, Allegiate fam? My name is Corbin. I am the head strength coach down at Allegiate Gym South Bay, and we are about to get into Block 8, Ask Me Anything. Let's dive right in with that first question. The first question asks, is 8x8, the Gironda Method that we're currently going through in team, meant to make people cancel their memberships? The answer to that question is no. Don't cancel your membership unless you don't want to be shredded for summer. The best months here in California to be shredded, to go to the beach, walk around without a shirt on in your swimming suit, really enjoying the weather that we pay for here, is going to be July, August, and September. 8x8 Gironda Method is a great way to get you there. It's a density-based protocol. So what that means is instead of increasing the weight or increasing the volume, we're trying to keep those two things the same and do the same amount of work in less time week to week. Ideally, that gets the heart rate up, really gets the body working, burns through a lot of calories, and that's going to leave you with a lower body fat percentage than what you started at. So if your goals are body composition oriented, if you want to look good naked, this is a block for you. So if that doesn't sound like something that you're looking for, sure, go ahead and cancel your membership. But you're going to regret it when you go home and you look a little bit frumpy in the mirror. You think, man, I really could have gotten the most out of that Gironda block at Allegiate had I just trained a little harder and been a little bit more mentally resilient. My next question asks, why are microwaves harmful, especially if the radiation being used is not that different from light waves or radio waves? So the literature on this kind of is blurry. And the theory would be two things. One, that if you're using something to detect radiation, a device, that the closer you get to the microwave, the higher the radiation goes up. Now, that's true. The way a microwave is designed is meant to, number one, have your food absorb all of the microwaves that are being used and keep those microwaves inside the microwave. So if you have a older microwave or one that's maybe defective, then a little bit more of that radiation might leak out. But the best way to solve for that is just not standing right by your microwave while you're reheating your food. So in all reality, those microwaves are probably not causing you any damage physically. Now, the other reason that one may not want to use a microwave would be because it denatures your food. And what that means is that you're losing some of the nutritional value. Now, this is a very fine line to walk. Some of our food needs to be denatured in order for us to eat it. For example, that's part of the reason that we cook a lot of our food, is to help denature the protein so that we can actually digest it and use it. Now, if we overcook our food, that can cause harmful cancers sometimes. That can cause the food to be a little bit more denatured, might lose some of the nutritional value, vitamins, minerals, even the protein value. And now, the more that we reheat our food, the higher likelihood that we're losing some of that nutritional value. Typically, if we boil or steam our vegetables, the water pulls some of that nutritional value out. Typically, when reheating or cooking your food for the first time, the less that we have to cook it, the less nutritional value is lost. So overall, microwaves, totally up to you if you want to use them. Not really good literature either way on whether or not they are safe and effective for cooking or reheating your food, or that they are dangerous to your health or will affect the nutritional value of your food. From a convenience standpoint, if you need to reheat your food in order to not order out and not eat garbage foods and have meal prepped and things like that, go ahead, microwave your foods. I wouldn't lose any sleep over it. My next question asks, what is worse, loaded hip thrusts or kipping pull-ups? I'm going to refuse to say which one is worse. Really, you're just choosing between having underdeveloped lats and shoulder problems or having chronic low back, hip, and pelvic issues. So the reason that we don't like loaded hip thrusts is if we think about the pelvis and the spine, we are meant to be loaded vertically. The forces of gravity are pulling down on our spine from the shoulders down. When we do a loaded hip thrust and we have our shoulders up on a bench, we are now in a spinal suspended position where we are loading that lumbar spine and our pelvis with gravity and external load in a position that it wasn't built to be loaded in. There are important nerves and things like that that run down that front side of the pelvis that we're now placing that object, that loaded barbell on. And we're just risk versus reward. It's pretty high risk. Now let's talk about the reward side of that equation. When we want to think about muscle growth, we want to think about elongating that tissue as much as we can. causing as much length, as much eccentric damage as possible. And part of that is by getting into a really deep stretch position. If you follow any bodybuilding, that's really what they're going to talk about. A huge thing of in that world right now is long length partials. So going until failure and then doing some partial reps from there. If we're thinking about using a machine to do that, like a prone leg curl, like we have at all 3 locations for the personal training, it might not be a bad idea to take an exercise like that to failure and then continue from a long length position. So from a knee extended position, curling up to our butt as far as we can and back down. We'd like a full range of motion, getting that pin to hit all the way at our hips. But if we can't do that anymore and we're getting partial range, that's still probably causing more growth than just training in the shortened range with the lower knee angle. So that being said, we aren't maximizing the length of the glute in a hip thrust position. We are really training the shortened end range, so it's not going to do very much to cause a huge muscle growth adaptation, which is why most people use that exercise. There's definitely a place for glute bridges or hip thrusts in a warm-up in order to get certain muscles a little bit more sensitized to training, a little bit more activated, if that's what you want to call it, or just getting blood flow to that tissue so that we're nice and warmed up to go for some of our other hinging patterns. Or I could see it as a decent pre-fatigue or post-fatigue option for us if we're doing something like a heavy deadlift or RDL where we're really targeting the hamstrings and glutes, and then we want to go in and finish them out with a hip thrust movement, but I still wouldn't load it across the pelvis. I still think that that's too risky from a risk reward standpoint, and there are better options available in order to develop our glutes. As far as kipping pull-ups go, it's the same thing, risk versus reward on the shoulder. Well, why are we doing kipping pull-ups? You could say for lat growth, but in all reality, like you're just using momentum to get your chin over the bar. So if you're using that much momentum, you're probably not putting enough stress on that tissue to really cause growth. Or you are, it's just taking you a whole lot more reps to get there because of the momentum. So if I can do 10 reps of something and get the same stimulus and same growth as 40 reps, so 10 regular strict pull-ups versus 40 reps on a kipping pull-up, I'm going to choose the lower volume one. I've talked a lot on these AMAs that I really think that volume is what causes injuries more so than intensity or external load. So I'm going to be really, really careful about picking between those two options. Another reason one might do kipping pull-ups might be conditioning. Again, risk versus reward. I can pick other conditioning options. There's actually so many other conditioning options that I could use instead of kipping pull-ups. I can't think of a reason why I choose that exercise other than I'm at a CrossFit gym. There aren't a lot of other options out there, and this is what everybody else is doing around me. And when I say there aren't a lot of other options out there, there aren't a lot of other options at that facility. Now, specifically in the kipping pull-up maybe motion, from a conditioning standpoint, I can think of stuff like battle ropes. I can think of stuff like even a skier pulling down that will be better conditioning tools to get the heart rate elevated in multiple different zones than kipping pull-ups themselves. So that's all reward standpoint, right? I don't understand what the point of this exercise is. Now, from a risk standpoint, we are not doing a good job of controlling the eccentric on the kipping pull-up. So not only is that going to limit the amount of muscle growth, again, from a hypertrophy standpoint, trying to control that eccentric, that muscle lengthening, there is no control on that muscle lengthening for a kipping pull-up. You're looking to use what's called the stretch shortening cycle, that rubber band effect of coming down quickly to pull that muscle apart and quickly let it go and snap yourself back up. Use that momentum to get your chin back over the bar. So from a reward standpoint, nothing there. Risk standpoint, I'm just putting a lot of stress on the ligaments and tendons and tissues within the shoulder in order to do that high of volume of a kipping pull-up. And I just see I'm not going to get any benefit out of it that I wouldn't get from choosing a different exercise or doing strict pull-ups. And the risk of those soft tissue injuries is just way too high. So from a risk reward standpoint for barbell hip thrusts and kipping pull-ups, I'm not going to pick between the two because I don't have to. There's a trillion other exercises out there that are just way better, and I'm not going to do either one of those. And neither are our members here at Allegiate. Next question. When are we opening in Arizona? So the goal of Allegiate has always been 50 gyms, 50 states. We've got 3 here in LA, and we are working on that 4th location. Where it's going to be, we don't exactly know yet, but it's coming. So keep your eyes peeled. We'll be in Arizona sometime soon. And lastly, kind of a silly question here. We've got who wins in a fight, 1 T-Rex or 500 llamas? Definitely 1 T-Rex. This person thanked me for answering the question, so I thank you and I thank everybody else who asked these questions and who listens to this, whether you're in the car or actually watching it on video. Thank you guys for submitting your questions. Please tune back in next block for block 9 and get those questions submitted for the Ask Me Anything there. And any suggestions that you guys have or questions, leave them in the comments below. We will see you all next block. Let's crush block 8.